Season 3. We're rocking, we're rolling. Take us away, Mayhem.
Play the jingle, Mug. We're back.
Oosh. Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the Football Booth podcast. This is the Season 3 premiere. My name is Fennan, and joining me for the third season in a row, I've got Mayhem. How you doing, my friend?
I'm very good, mate. Very, very good. You?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. Boys are back in town. Football's back in town. Well, nearly all of it. The Premier League, we've still got to wait for another week, but we don't really, we're just here to talk about it. We don't really get indulged in it as much as, basically anyone who supports a Premier League team. But
it's a football day.
Football's back. You fucking knobhead.
Mate, hasn't been as long as obviously the World Cup strong last season out for quite a while, so it hasn't been as long an off season as you'd normally get, but it's felt fucking long, hasn't it?
It has felt a very, we made that special cameo episode where we did the transfer special, and we had Stu pop on and give us a quiz. It was enjoyable. It was something to sort of break up the time frame between the end of last season and the beginning of this one. So, we took our time away. We took a step back, recharged our batteries, and rocking and rolling. Good to go again for this season, and which I hope is going to be an exciting one. From the perspective of a Celtic fan and a Cardiff City fan. But we'll start off with you, Mayhem. You were back in action this weekend under Brendan Rodgers for the second spell, a home tie against Ross County, and it seemed like he was, continuing where he left off before he abruptly made the move to the Premier League with Leicester. But a 4-2 victory, great positive start. Take us through the game.
Well, my fiance was bridesmaid on Saturday, so I was dipping in and out of the game, heavily warned that I couldn't view
mate,
the game in the chapel. Luckily, depending on, I guess, your perspective, luckily the bride was very late. So
she had snipers set up around the church and that, right?
So I watched the first half. The start of the first half wasn't great. We were sloppy. The same usual, and I say usual suspects, I guess, through pre-season, the people that have been sort of calling for potential replacements and that kind of stuff. Joe Hart's name's obviously been badgered around a bit, and he didn't do himself any favours. But we kind of, we snapped into action. Taylor takes the ball down, goes past Ross County player, brings him down, and David Turnbull getting his first start, which just seemed like forever for whatever reason.
Came away with 2, but he was quite a favourite under Brendan, wasn't he? During his first spell.
I'm trying to think.
I'm pretty sure he was. I'm pretty sure he played.
I think it was maybe. I want to say, was it Lennon that signed him? I'm not sure. But anyway, he wasn't too favourable under Postecoglou for whatever reason, and he got his start. He looked decent, especially in the Bilbao game on Tuesday night. Forest's testimonial, so maybe that put him right in line. But he took his chance. He buries the penalty well, and then the game opens up from there. Their whole be really tight and regiment. They had to be a little bit more expansive, and that allowed us to at times hit him with a quick counter, and that's exactly how the second goal comes. Lillabada, down the line, ball slipped through to him down the line, crosses it over. Kyogo does what Kyogo does and buries it. First game, first goal, he's off the mark, which is good. And then David Turnbull popping up with his second as well. He probably should have had a hat-trick. Misses a really good chance that the ball slipped through, and the keeper makes a good save. So probably should have had a hat-trick. Second one, his second goal, O'Reilly clips it to the back post, and it's a decent enough finish, and then it's pretty comfortable from there. Their goal was a little bit sloppy. It was a corner, potentially, the guy's heading the ball in the 6-yard box, so the keeper maybe could have come and dealt with it a bit better. We could have defended it a bit better. Kyogo was on the post, could have maybe done a wee bit better. So it wasn't fantastic, but a really good fourth goal, Matt O'Reilly bagging as well, which is good to see. I think his comments are being, I don't know, he's maybe not spoken as favourably about Ange as maybe you'd expect. The fact he was kind of plucked from MK Dons and is now, on the fringes of the Denmark squad. Ange done a lot for him. But I guess, whatever way Ange was, I think he's very standoffish from the players, where maybe Brendan's a little bit more sort of arm around you, and he potentially likes that style of management a bit more. But yeah, he bags, and then, we kind of take our eye off the ball, and looks like Carl Starfelt's last his last action as a Celtic player is to deflect the ball past Joe Hart as to make it 4-2. But
he's off, is he?
Yeah, look. So apparently he wants to leave the club, personal reasons.
Okay.
And he's heavily linked with Celta Vigo in Spain. I think it's like about €5 million that the price that's being touted around, which seems pretty low for a Swedish international that just off the back of a treble. But if from all the reports, it sounds like Cole Starfelt's kind of driving it. He wants to leave for whatever he wants to leave for. We know obviously that it come out that he was obviously dating one of the Celtic women's player, Jacinta, or however you say her name, and she obviously then went to Sporting Lisbon, the women's team. So whether or not he wants to be a bit closer to her, who knows?
Yeah,
but
that makes sense. Yeah.
Looks like he's away. And yeah, his last contribution, which was the word I was searching for just a minute ago and couldn't find. His last contribution looks like it was a deflected goal. Consolation, but it does make the scoreline perhaps look a little bit more favourable for them. But yeah, poor start, kind of clicked into gear. I think we from what I've seen of the second half, we were certainly sort of foot off the gas, comfortable. Wasn't really in any trouble, but we do end up shipping 2 goals in that half, which is obviously disappointing from our point of view. But overall, 3 points in the bag, happy days, and we move on.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can ask for a better start, and to top that, Rangers losing their opening game of the season to Kilmarnock.
It was, it was a great day Saturday. We was in full party mode. Like I said, was at the wedding. The results through in terms of Celtic, so we're buzzing, and then all of a sudden, around about 7 o'clock, as we're tucking into dessert, we got an extra spot of dessert when we hear the noise trickling through from Rugby Park that they've been beaten on the opening day as well. So
enjoy a nice slice of treacle pie, did you?
Bill balls off to a pretty brutal beginning, but we'll see. Obviously, it puts them on the back foot straight away. I think they're already talking about how big the first derby is going to be now. Obviously, it's at Ibrox and coming up pretty quickly in the start of September, so there's a load of pressure piling on. But we know the winning machine that is Celtic. We know what we do, and we'll keep ourselves firmly rooted, on the next game and build into that. But Michael Beale is already under. I think he's under pressure anyway because one, he's at a really big football club. Either whoever you are, whatever side you're managing in terms of Rangers or Celtic, there isn't very many clubs in world football where the only pass mark for every single game is to win, no matter what.
Yeah, and that seems to be a familiar pattern amongst like all the leagues where there really is only like 2, maybe 3 teams that you expect to be up there competing against one another for silverware, and it's even more difficult in the cinch Premiership where it's primarily known for it to be in either Celtic or either Rangers. And then you have the La Liga, you've got Atletico, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liga PSG. How many times have we seen a PSG manager being sacked at the end of the season when even they've won the league title but just not gone far in the Champions League? It's very fine margins in these situations, and Michael Beale has not got off to a great start at all, especially when he's brought in quite a few new faces as well, who on paper look to be quite good additions that you'd expect now Rangers to go on and go head to head, toe to toe with Celtic, but to open the season up with a loss to Kilmarnock. Michael Beale already is in that sack race, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't think he maybe padded his stats a wee bit and brought himself a wee bit of time with obviously the last derby at Ibrox where he won. But I think for a long time this Rangers team has been a team that when the pressure is really cranked up, they don't perform. And they can argue to their heart's content about last season, and Bill needed to win a derby and all this bollocks. Every derby that mattered, he lost. And
Yeah.
then the toe come and there's no way that we wanted to go to Ibrox and lose 3-0 or whatever it was, but the game was a dead rubber and it meant fuck all for the season. That's the only time that they performed. Here we are, brand new season. They're out in their lovely Guards of the Vatican kit, beautiful kit. Well done to them.
Oh, the state of it though. Oh.
And they already know that we've won. They were yapping away about the fact that we conceded to the Ross County and we looked pish and blah blah blah. They've yapped away about that, gone to Rugby Park and shit the bed. So next week's huge for them. Obviously they'll be back home in front of their supporters. It now becomes a massive game, and like you said, they're already looking towards that derby. If things potentially not to go right for them, they potentially could be 6 points behind in a league at the moment. We'll see how Aberdeen and Hibs and that get on in Europe. Hibs obviously turning around their Conference League tie to progress the next round.
Yeah.
Aberdeen have got a favourable draw in the Europa League today. I think it's actually that Swedish team that they got knocked out of the Champions League, Häcken, I think.
Oh yeah, Häcken, yeah.
Yeah, so that's who they've got in
interesting. Okay.
In their playoff. So if they get past, I think Häcken have got to beat someone else to
yeah, because they knocked out the New Saints, the Welsh team that wins the Welsh League every season. So yeah,
they'll if they get through that, then I'll have Aberdeen. So at the moment the league's not in a great place. There's been a few decent additions, some decent business done, but I think them getting back into European football and playing at that high level will only improve it and improve the league. But at the moment, there isn't too many teams really that you kind of look at and think this is going to be a tricky game. But I think Celtic, we play Aberdeen pretty quickly, whether it's our next game or not. But we are at Pittodrie pretty quickly. It may even be the next game.
Okay.
So never easy to go to Pittodrie.
No.
I'm sure there's nothing in the fact that we're away to Aberdeen and Rangers in the first 4 games. That random computer generator just happened to do that. But yeah, I think that they'll probably be. They've done some okay business from what I've seen. I haven't looked too much at the squad. I don't know if they've managed to keep hold of the likes of Duke and that, who obviously had a really good season from last year. But I'd expect them to be third best again. The back end of last season, I know they had a disappointing draw. Well, I think they'd probably see it as a disappointing draw. Away at Livingston on the opening day. But certainly Barry Robson had them playing some decent stuff last year. Obviously beat Rangers as well, which was big for him at Pittodrie. So they'll be right up for it. Their first game in front of their fans. So it won't be easy, but it's difficult to pick a team that you see taking points off of the 2 Glasgow clubs. I know that Kilmarnock have done it on the opening day, but it is difficult when you look through the league to think, yeah, they'll struggle there. But there'll be blips throughout the season for both. But you wouldn't expect there to be too many points dropped, and that's why there's been a mini meltdown, from the Govan team, because there isn't going to be too many points dropped from either side you would expect this season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, before we move on as well, speaking of incomings as well, let's speak about Celtic's incomings, because it seems like Brendan Rodgers has kind of kept to the same scouting network to what Ange had. Like this, you brought in a midfielder from a South Korean midfielder that came in. Obviously, you had the young Australian winger come in as well. Like, have you got any glimpses or any looks at their performances?
Yeah, so it's a couple of pre-seasons. Obviously, like Athletic Bilbao and Wolves down in Dublin. We see Yang, which I think is the winger, and the centre defence mid. his name is escaped me at the moment. I'm pretty sure that those two were identified through the scouting network that we have set up. Tillo's the Australian winger that we
Tillo,
obviously
that's it.
brought
Yeah,
in. He's
Tilio. Yeah.
he's injured at the moment, so I haven't been able to really get a look at him. But Yang on the right looked a decent addition, looked lively. The midfielder I thought had a decent game against Wolves when he come on. Maybe a wee bit more shaky against Bilbao. Um, Home as well, the Norwegian boy, he's looked good in pre-season. And then the Polish defender that coming from Legia Warsaw, he started on Saturday and
Okay.
looked all right. So yeah, they all. I don't think we've had what anyone would recognise as a marquee signing. But Kyogo wouldn't have probably been that when he signed 2 years ago. Abada wouldn't have been thought as a marquee signing. Matt O'Reilly would have been scratching our head. So even Jota, I mean, when he come in, he wasn't, you know, renowned like, oh my god, we've got Jota. So yeah, we'll see how the boys bed in. I think we've still got the a treble winning team. And we're heavily linked with the Dynamo Zagreb keeper. Begins with L.
Livakovic?
Yeah,
He'd be a fantastic signing.
yeah. So it's a lot of money. Talking around that €9 million mark.
I'll pay it.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll pay it.
that's the common sense. But will Celtic do that? I mean, Edouard cost that. He was our record signing, and this is for a goalkeeper. I don't know. They were burnt on Barkas, paying £5 million for Barkas, and he wasn't what they thought. So we'll see. I think that Brendan's a big fan of him.
I think he's unbelievable, Livakovic. I watched him at the World Cup last year. Unbelievable goalkeeper, and he's at a very good age as well. I think he's like late 20s, so he's not even hit his peak yet. And the way he performed for Croatia in that World Cup, I think and to be available as little as 9 million. I know it'd be a lot of money, in the sense of Celtic, and of course I know I saw Brendan Rodgers come out the other day saying that Celtic aren't really the club to fork out big fees like when you look at around the 15-20 million mark, and so that sort of money for a goalkeeper may prove to be a stumbling block, and it may be a deal that the board are very unfamiliar to. And you brought up Barkas as well. I didn't even realise he set you back 5 million, but
Yeah.
I think Livakovic would be an unbelievable. I mean, he'd come in 9 million, and you'd easily get 20 at the very least out of him.
Yeah, well, that's the model, and we buy. So hopefully, we'll hear some. We're also linked with that Roder played at Borussia Dortmund a couple of years back. I think he's maybe Swiss. He's kind of
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
central midfielder,
yeah.
youngster. So we'll see. The whispers are that there'll be some action this week in terms of signings. So hopefully we'll see some actions. I know that there's people that are being told that are not in the plans, and they've kind of been told that to go and find clubs. Haksabanovic is apparently one of those names that's being sort of banded around as Brandon's kind of said, not for me. So yeah, we'll
Quite
see it.
surprised to hear that. Yeah.
There's still a lot of deadwood at the club as well, like Albion, Yeti, James McCarthy.
These are names I didn't expect that you'd still have on the books, if I'm honest. Albany Yeti's still being mentioned. James McCarthy, it feels like he's been around for 10 seasons now.
Yeah, so Albany Yeti apparently happy to stay and see out his contract and bag another £1 million.
Ridiculous.
Whether James moves on, who knows? But yeah, that's obviously eating into with a decent enough budget, especially if the reports are true of Hatati wanting to leave, and that that'll be more money into the bank. So we'll see. There's whispers that Tierney has a sell-on clause in his contract, and if he's to go anywhere, then we would profiteer from that. But
Yeah.
we'll see. All in all, week one done, and I think really domestically we will be we'll be happy where we're at domestically, knowing that we go into that derby in September, and then we'll also know the Champions League layout, and I think that's where we'll look to be. Have all our deals done, signings done, and in the door be sort of around the end of August mark, which it normally is for Celtic. Normally, we have to navigate these dodgy qualifiers, which we don't have this year, and obviously last year because of the way that the format's changed. But I think as we get towards the middle of August, things will ramp up. And
Oh yeah, because it's now that weird league system where you're competing with like 35 other teams.
And I think that people maybe that think, all right, so it's a good option, but have I got any other options? As it starts to get towards that middle of August, they realise that actually maybe going to Celtic Champions League football is a decent option. So we'll see how things go. But all in all, positive week one. Can't complain too much, and we move on.
Happy days to the Championship and Errol Bullett's shagging Bluebirds. Like, we didn't really get to cover a lot of the ingoings and outgoings at Cardiff City in our last transfer special episode. I think we was pretty much overtaken by the Jota deal going to Saudi, and then the million other Saudi deals that took place. Liverpool bringing in Szoboszlai and Callister and stuff like that. And so, we went into this transfer window, and of course we had the embargo impended on us due to obvious reasons, and that was the Emiliano Sala deal. Just to briefly brush over that we were ordered by FIFA to pay those 2 instalments, and we have. And so, just to briefly leave on that, like it was a breath of fresh air to now leave that now behind us and move on, from what has been an absolute tragedy, and even more tragic that it was still a dispute 5 years on. But here again, hearing speculation that I think Vincent Tan is looking to sue Nantes next year for 200 million over player neglect. So for now, it's the end of it. But in terms of our dispute with Nantes, it's far from over. But it's on the back burner for now, which is good to see. But nevertheless, like we had one arm tied behind our back, and Errol Bullett came in from Turkey and had to really be smart in this transfer window. And I must say, he has been cooking absolute wonders. I mean, to top it all, the first one is Aaron Ramsey coming back to the club. Massive, absolutely huge, especially off the back of last year where we had that disappointment with Gareth Bale. But I know that there's such a big difference between Gareth Bale coming and Aaron Ramsey coming. Aaron Ramsey came up through the academy system, whereas Bale is just, he's born in Cardiff, but he has no affiliation to the club whatsoever, and it was just going out on a limb to see if he would fancy playing there for a season. And of course, never came to fruition. But for Aaron Ramsey to come back and to be at the age of 32, it's unbelievable, because to come back to where everything started and to see him back in the blue of Cardiff again was just a surreal moment. And
let's be honest, at 32 as well, if he can put sort of his injury woes behind him, you've signed a very good football player that could probably be playing at a higher level, and if he didn't have that affiliation, didn't come up, he probably wouldn't be at Cardiff. So it is a coup. You're talking about someone that was obviously playing in the top league of France last year, playing the Europa League final. Great day.
Inside job, I'm telling you, mate.
And a couple of years ago was playing at one of the biggest teams in Italy, and he's talking about Juventus. And I know that his time there wasn't great, and that's obviously led to his loan deal, across the city and that. But ultimately, if he didn't have that affiliation, I don't think there's any other club in the Championship, even the likes of Southampton and those boys, that would have really attracted him, because it was a Championship. What's attracted him is Cardiff City and his affiliation to the club. So absolutely no doubt, keep him fit, keep him on the field and playing enough games and in the right frame, then absolute coup and a wonder sign him, really.
Yeah, and he wanted to be back. He wanted to return home. He wanted to be closer to family as well. So I think that was a big factor in him coming back to Cardiff as well. But like you said, touch wood, if he does stay fit, and being at the age of 32, we could easily get. He signed a 2-year deal as well. We could easily get 2 years out of him, and he probably is a little bit past his peak now. Like we're not going to have the Ramsey when he was at Arsenal. I think it was. I mean, I don't know. It was a weird dynamic with Ramsey because he came up, did well at Arsenal. Obviously suffered that horrific leg break, but then came back. I think it was like the 2014 season when he had like a ridiculous start the first 6 months and then got injured again. And so like his best days are past him, but like to bring in that caliber of player with his experience, and we're talking World Cup, Champions League, silverware with Juve, silverware with Arsenal, even though they might be FA Cups, they still talk, they still speak for themselves. And like again, like mentally and like psychologically, like around the dressing room, he's going to be a massive figure for players to really, gain experience off of, and this is the thing, like, and he will absolutely spearhead that team, and then moving on from Ramsey, like the players we've managed to bring in as well, like again, limited resources. We brought in a Greek centre back in Demetrios Goutas, who he looked like an absolute monster against Leeds on Sunday, and we'll get onto the Leeds game in a moment. But looks a real coup. Links up well with McGuinness as well, and he's got that. I don't know. He's got that like that leader of men build about him, which is who I thought was a fantastic recruitment, and then. The loan signings as well in Karlan Grant and Josh Bowler. I mean, I know Karlan Grant didn't have his best season last year at West Brom. Probably a big reason behind that is because he had to play under Steve Bruce for a bit. But moving on, and then Josh Bowler, who was on loan at Blackpool last season, was hands down their standout player in a very poor Blackpool side. And was a real coup, like a proper old-fashioned winger who, take on anyone and everyone and cut inside, and that's exactly what he did on Sunday, when we again went opening day of the season. We get Leeds away at Ellen Road, and I mean I'm not going to lie, I was frustrated in how the game turned out, because it's never nice to concede a late goal, and especially when you're 2 goals up in the game. But now, sort of taking a step back and not being in the heat at the moment, if you offered me a draw at Ellen Road on the opening day of the season, I'd snap your hand off. And even looking at the stats as well, like the goals were completely smash and grab. We had 2 shots on target the whole game, and those were the 2 goals. But Leeds, from start to finish, were just all over us. We from the first whistle, we took a very cautious approach, and we prioritised more just keeping the shape and not allowing players like Somerville and Nonto, who ran rings around us in the FA Cup last season. He was going to be a massive threat going forward, and again, like he proved to be so. Should have put them 1-0 up early on, and then all of a sudden, we get on the break. I think it's O'Dowda that breaks down the left flank, cuts it back to Bowler. Shots blocked, and then gets a fortunate pass back from, I think it was Ugbo, who played it back to him, and he slots it through a flurry of bodies and puts us 1-0 up. And at that point, it's just really let's get another, and then see, just be cautious throughout the rest of the game. And that's exactly what we did up to the first half, and then second half came along. We've never been. I've been saying it for the last year or so that from set pieces we just not look good whatsoever. We just always lose, one target man that they aim for, one aerial threat that they look for, and the biggest standout one for Leeds is Liam Cooper. McGuinness loses him and gets up and heads home easily. And then from that point on, it was just weathering the storm, really. And, did so well, defended brilliantly in that game. And it was just a very, very unfortunate deflection. Somerville turns with his back to goal and flashes a shot beyond Anik into the bottom corner, and it's a 95th minute equaliser. But at least we came away with a point at the very least, and there were plenty of positives to take from that game, because if we take the squad that we started with last season under Steve Morrison, it most likely would have been the outcome of when we played in the FA Cup at Ellen Road, where we lost by 5-2. And so, yeah, there was a lot of positives to take. All the new signings that featured played incredibly well. Like I said, Bowler played well. Carlin Grant, I think he just couldn't really get into that game. But I think moving forward, he'll be a massive player for us, especially when he's linking up with Robbo again. But I think Bullet's go-to man right now is probably Ike Ugbo, who we've got on loan from a French League 2 side, pronounced Troyes. That's the French pronunciation, according to my Swedish tutor, who is half French. So good thing Cam's not here, otherwise he'd rip my fucking head off. But as true as you can. Get his Barry Brexit voice out. But yeah, no, it was a, again, positive first week, just like Celtic, and like I said, to go to Ellen Road, to a Leeds side that's just come down from the Premier League and has managed to keep a lot of their key players for now, was a huge plus. And
yeah, you'd think that Leeds side. I guess this is really one of these things that Leeds fans have heard a lot, so apologies if this is reaching any Leeds-orientated ears, but you would think that they'll be too good to remain in the league for too long. I'm sure that was banded around quite a lot 15 years ago, and they managed a 15-year stint. But yeah, I think that you'd be very, very surprised with the team that Leeds have at the moment if they don't go on and have a pretty successful year. Leicester looked okay in their opening game against Coventry, and Southampton again looked decent against Wednesday on Friday night. But realistically, you look at those teams and where they're at Premier League wise, and the players they have at their disposal, and the people that you said that Southampton are losing. Liveramento's completing his move to Newcastle,
yep,
getting a decent fee for him, but they are kind of hemorrhaging players. Leicester, losing Maddison, losing Harvey Barnes, and then you look at Leeds, and there hasn't been like a real, as far as I've certainly been aware, a real sort of named player go out of the club. So they've retained well, and I think that'll serve them well. If they can get Bamford fit, I don't know if he started on the weekend, but if they can get Bamford fit,
Bamford's out for a few weeks. I think they said he. I can't remember what happened. He had. I think he suffered like a concussion or something in training, and then pulled his hamstring like the next week or so. So they've lost Bamford for a few weeks. I don't know. It's a weird dynamic with Leeds because, as like you said, they've retained very well. Big key players like Nonto and Somerville and Dan James as such. But there's just something about Daniel Farke that I'm not convinced by, because it took him a while to get going with Norwich when he first took over there. It was quite a long process when he first joined Norwich, and Leeds have really, really got to back that Daniel Farke can just hit the ground running from this point forward. Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure from a Leeds fan's perspective, like a draw at home to Cardiff isn't a good start. No. And especially going 2-0 down in the first half as well. I don't think I think there were a few boos ringing around the stadium when the half-time whistle went, understandably. But Daniel Farke has got to, from now until the window closes, has got to just retain as many of those key players as possible. And there's easily 100%. Some that will draw attention from bigger clubs, either in the Premier League or abroad.
Yeah, and look, he's at a massive football club, and the league that Leeds are in, again, it's very much the dynamic that we have up in Glasgow, in that Leeds fans will expect to win every game, and a draw will not be seen as a good result. When I think, in hindsight, when they step back and they look at the performance, it was a decent enough performance. Dominated the ball, created a lot of good situations, but
Yep.
Cardiff were regimented and were resilient and battled out a point. I think that they'll probably leave that game. It'd be different if they equalised in the 70th minute and they had 20 minutes to go out to win the game. They didn't get it done. The fact they snatched in the 95th, there'll probably be like a good feeling around the place going into the next game. But very quickly they'll have to. Obviously, they have the EFL Cup, I think, coming Tuesday.
Yeah.
You'd imagine they won't really prioritise that. But as the faster they can get back to winning ways and start to get on that run, you can certainly see Leeds, with the momentum they'll get from Elland Road, and again, the players that they have, you can certainly see them getting on a run, getting momentum going, and charging away with the league title, the way that Burnley did, and with the Newcastle drop down and do so. It's the potential's there, but yeah, I don't think when they were leaving Elland Road on Sunday that they thought that was a good point and a good way to start the season. But hindsight, looking at the overall performance, they'll probably think, all right, Cardiff just defended well today and we wasn't clinical enough. But he's at a huge football club. Leeds are a massive football club in England, and they'll expect to be going straight back up, but two, to be doing it in a certain way in that division. So he has a big job.
No, he has a huge job, Daniel Farke, and like you said, the EFL Cup tomorrow and Wednesday. Both Leeds and Cardiff are in action, and it's a great opportunity for Leeds to bounce back. It's a great opportunity. This is Errol Bullett's first home game in charge. We go home to League One side Colchester, and I think if anything, it will allow Errol Bullett to rotate and experiment a bit more. I feel the squad depth is a lot stronger than it was last season. I think he'll probably rotate Ugbo and put Robbo in, or he could put Atete in as well. And then the midfield, I mean, even though Joe Rawls went off early doors against Leeds, we've still got. I think one more central midfielder would be ideal for Bullet to bring in. And again, purely speculation that he said there is going to be one new face coming through the door before the game on Wednesday. So, myself and Cardiff followers will keep our eyes peeled as to who that name is. Hopefully, he is a central midfielder, especially if Joe Rawls is going to be on the sidelines for quite some time. But we had Ebu Adams finally make his debut for Cardiff, as he had the whole season out injured last season. A midfielder that we got in on a free from Forest Green, I believe. Again, stepped up to the plate when he needed to, when Rules had to go off, and put a real good shift in. I thought Eber Adams, and I was absolutely massively impressed with him. Again, Jamilu Collins back from his long-term injury from last season, and again expressed in the past how key of a player he would have been, if he didn't pick up his long-term injury. So we got him back, but I think after the season that Callum O'Dowd put in last season at left back, he's going to have some competition as well. So we've got a good few selection headaches amongst all the departments. Jack Anik as well in net. Obviously, Allsop's out injured at the moment, so Anik, I thought, again stepped up well in the Leeds game, pulled off a few good saves here and there, and again, it honestly feels like that there's finally a bit of buzz around the place now, and it's just what we needed. Last year, it just felt like it was a massive rebuild, and mainly primarily down to just having these players that were unproved in the Championship, that had come up from lower tiers or hadn't got any minutes at their parent clubs in the Premier League, such as Jaden Philogene, who was in there, Cedric Kipre, who was not getting minutes at West Brom. But it feels like Bullet has gone for quality over quantity, unlike what Morrison did last season. But it felt like we needed that rebuild, but now we've added that quality and got good rotationary options amongst the squad.
I think something that we probably haven't spoke about. I mean, and I guess it's probably through the fact that I'm sitting here as a Celtic fan, and when and you'll understand what I mean in a minute when I ask you the question, because there's only really one answer for me. So I guess that's why we haven't deep dived it. But what's a good season for Cardiff this year?
It's always difficult as a Cardiff fan because your heart says one thing and your head says another. And my heart always says the same thing. I mean, last year it didn't. But I think, my heart says playoffs this year. My head says 14th.
Yeah, because I think, like, growing up, and that's where you were. Whether it was tragedy in the playoffs, well, it was always tragedy in the playoffs.
It always is, mate.
And then obviously, winning the league, and then going back down, and then obviously coming back up again, and having those stints in the Premiership, and then obviously, the kind of self-destruct button that's happened around Cardiff, that's left two relegation battles in a row. I think there's building blocks, but then if you can go to Ellen Road, and I know that the game, that maybe the actual overall scoreline hides the fact that you were maybe second best, but if you go to Leeds and you can defend well enough to take a point, and you can be clinical enough on the counter to take a point, there isn't really anywhere in the league where you can't get a result. Maybe fortune favoured you on Sunday, but realistically, it was dogged defending, it was solid, it was robust and resilient, and if you go and have that display at Rotherham, if they're Stevenage to win the league, fuck knows, with that waterlogged pitch fiasco of a club. But like, if you go and have that kind of resilience, you can only see there being one outcome there.
I wonder if their game went ahead this weekend.
Nah, I think someone spilt a Coke in the stands, mate. That was it. Game called off.
Someone drowned.
But there's definitely, I think we had this as well last season. Remember, like, it was Norwich at home, and we said, well, there's the benchmark now.
Yeah.
Norwich, and then obviously Norwich had a shit season, but there's
that
kind
aged
of
like milk, didn't it?
I know, yeah, they were awful, and they've still got Wagner in charge now, and they fucking brutal for Norwich.
Yeah.
Especially
I mean, even for Cardiff as well, it aged horribly because, like you said, we set a benchmark there, beating Norwich, who were dubbed as favourites to go back up to the Prem, and we went on a downward spiral ourselves. And then Morrison got the boot. It was a poor decision to bring Mark Hudson in, and it continued to go downwards. Like we were underachieving in so many games, underperforming. There really wasn't a lot of fight, and it just got to the point of, like, how long can you use that excuse of it's a new squad of players, they're still moulding together, but yet you're looking around Christmas time where Hudson's got his neck on the line now and has really got some heat on his back. Which I felt bad for him as well. Like I said, I always said that I felt bad for Mark Hudson because as a player I loved him. And I don't, if anyone in his position was offered the first team role managing Cardiff City, you absolutely wouldn't say no. And, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, if I'm honest. And it was just, he was never going to get the backing from the board. He was never going to have the financial strength. This is the big thing as well, like the financial strength of all these other clubs in the Championship makes it so much more difficult to even put ourselves in the frame of, like, competing. You have all your parachute payments when you come back down, so Leeds are still in a good place, Southampton are still in a good place, and then again you've still got the likes of Norwich around there. You've still got the likes of Sheffield United around there. Middlesbrough, how strong they were last season.
No, Sheffield United went up, didn't they?
Did they go up?
Yeah, second. They went up second. Automatic.
Yeah, they did. No.
Yeah,
you're right. Yeah, they did. No, my apologies.
I was buzzing. I wanted the old Still City derby back, but
yeah,
they went up.
No, they did go up, but this is the thing.
I know what you mean, because that's when I was thinking about it. I don't think at the moment, when you look at that list, like you said, like Norwich, obviously the three teams that have come down with the parachute payments, still clubs that have been knocking on the door for years, like Millwall, that have been knocking on that playoff door, and choking it on the last day of the season. Great crack. Blackburn always kind of peaks where they do well. Coventry, and obviously they lost their big striker, but
Yeah.
we're obviously in their borough, massive football club, and played very well under Carrick. So I think it's gonna be a bit tough. But if I was to offer you top half finish and unbeaten against Jacks this season, would you take it?
No, I'll finish bottom half. No, no, because that's a completely different kettle of fish. We've lost our last 4 South Wales derbies, mate. I can't take another one.
So if we win at Cardiff, win at home at Cardiff City Stadium, draw at the Liberty, and they offer you 13th, would you say? Yeah, it's been a
Mate, you'd
decent
have no
building
limbs.
blocks.
It honestly, like, you'd just be a torso right now. 100%, 100% take 13th and 4 points over the Jacks. 100 million%, absolutely.
Very good.
Because
Well,
because even then, like if we were to hypothetically finish 13th, that's still a good benchmark for us to then push on to next season. Like this is like Errol Bullock has come in. He's done really well in this transfer window with the circumstances and everything against him. But now, like, again, like, if we can retain certain players as well, like if we can perhaps get like Josh Bowler back in, if we can get Carl and Grant back in, and again, like, they've got a season under their belt, and we can get those sorts of that caliber of player back in, and we finish 13th at the end of this season, we can easily push further forward the following season.
I think first and foremost, it's just don't get dragged into that dogfight. The last couple of years, you've started really poorly, and you've left yourself a lot of work to do. And before you know it, it's Christmas, and you're in a relegation fight. So tick away, keep yourself in that mid-table, and you never know. Like if you're sitting 12th come February, all it really takes in that league is put together sort of 5 or 6 on the bounce, and all of a sudden you're in playoff contention running into March and April. So, and we've seen it with the likes of Millwall making these late surges to get in, and teams getting closer to that finishing line stumble. The likes of we've seen, Blackburn that was in it all the time and then sort of fell away. So you do see teams stumble, but it can be done. It can be done on those building blocks. Luton have proven that. Luton are obviously a huge success story, and you would look through Luton's team. Even now, if you look through Luton's team, they're a division above you. You'd be like, I don't really fancy any of their players.
This
But
is
they're
it.
such a
If there's really, I mean, I think they, I mean, Ryan Giles was a great signing for them. I thought, yeah, that left side's going to be quite strong. And then past that, the only player I really rate is that Adebayo, the striker.
Right, that's what I mean. I was talking like when I was in the Championship, you didn't really look at their team and think, yeah, I'd take him. But you look at the team, you knew you was all right. It's going to be a real tough game. But they did it a complete different way, which kind of opens the door and makes anyone, I think, in the Championship dream of a of the riches of the Premier League. But I think optimistic certainly. And
Yeah.
hopefully we'll get to see a few more flamboyant performances over the next couple of weeks when you're not facing last season's Premier League teams.
Well, I think this is. I'm keeping myself more grounded than I ever did last season. I mean, especially when we beat Norwich and it was high hopes, left, right, and centre. Then all of a sudden, the next week we go and lose to Reading. But and as much as I like, I'm, feel like I'm putting Cardiff down a little bit. We go to the Cardiff City Stadium next Saturday against QPR. I don't know about you, Mayhem, but Gareth Ainsworth he's a fucking breed, isn't he?
They got absolutely papped at Vicarage Road. That's Watford as well, another team we haven't even mentioned when we're talking about trying to break
Watford
into
as
that.
well, exactly. This is the thing, like,
Absolutely,
the competition's ridiculous.
absolutely papped 4-0. So yeah, it'll be interesting, I think. But there's certainly more optimism. The fact that
Yeah.
there was a sellout in the away end as well for Cardiff City away at Elland Road, which isn't a short trip. I think move on to the rest. Obviously, like you said, the Premier League, the Tourist League, hasn't kicked off yet. But there's a few other things popping around. Reading costing me £184 on the weekend. Appreciate Reading getting beat at home to Peterborough. Happy days, Redden. Glad you got
Oh, and that was a narrow defeat as well to Posh.
absolutely sickening. Um, but a few shocks in Scotland. I think mentioned earlier, Aberdeen had a poor result. I think they'll see it as a poor result drawing at home to Livingston, especially with the work that Livingston haven't managed to get done. And David Martindale, in his lovely bald head, has been talking about how he's struggled to bring people into the club. But I think the big kind of shock, although it shouldn't really be a shock after the season they had last year, was St Mirren beating Hibs 3-2. Massive result for them at Easter Road.
Huge result for St Mirren, absolutely. And again, they're just another club in the Cinch Premiership who I just. And Hibs were brilliant last season. But
Towards the back end, yeah.
Towards the back end they were, but
Lee Johnson, I think, it sounds to be a bit mad because, like I said, towards the back end they did play well, but he obviously had that shock result in the Conference League away from home in the back arse of nowhere, wherever the fuck they were. They brought him back to East Road, beat him 6-1. So you guys like, all right, we'll put that to bed. Then they went 2 down to St Mirren. Then they were back to 2 each, and you're like, all right. And then they lose. They obviously lost Kevin Nesbitt. I think he went to Millwall. In
Nisbet,
the summer.
yeah, he did go. He did jump ship to the Championship.
So they've got some voids to fill, but Hibs are another, they're another club that will very quickly turn, and they've had not at the best of times in Edinburgh. They've been second best for a little while. Hearts have been consistently better than them across most of the derbies. Although Hibs got a win last season, but the Hearts have been consistently the better team in the derby, finishing higher up and going deeper in cup competitions and so on and so forth. And obviously Hearts started off with a win as well. Okay, they were away at St Johnstone, and that says St Mirren with a surprise package, but. I fear for Lee Johnson. Neil Lennon, and it's a name that still kind of rings pretty painfully with me. But
I think it rings quite painfully with Hibs fans as well.
Neil Lennon was at the game.
He was there. Okay,
which is a bit strange. I don't know why he would be there, but
I thought he was on Soccer Saturday for the Rangers game, wasn't he? Was that the Sunday?
He was. Well, Hibs was on the Sunday, yeah. Hibs was on the Sunday, so.
Oh, okay.
He was apparently videoed at the game. Now I haven't looked too much into the video whether it is authentic or not, but that's got to be a worry, isn't it? Lee Johnson having a flashback and seeing the Ginger Prince would be on.
Well, we were talking about how bad a second spell was at a club like Celtic. Can you imagine a second spell at Hibs?
Yeah, it's I think they kind of wanted to go a wee bit different, and Scotland is such a unique place for football, in the the passion that it creates, and how kind of. I think everyone looks at the UK and thinks of the English Premiership and it's the passion that is amassed across Scotland for it. I think Lee Johnson probably didn't understand what he was stepping into. He probably thought he was coming up here, and if he finished, if he won, whatever, a few games here, lost a few games here, and finished fifth in the league, it would be grand, and it would kind of build his CV. That's not the case.
This is the thing, and I don't want to speak too highly of Lee Johnson because he's a Bristol bastard, but I mean, if we look at his CV, that he, knocked United out of the League Cup once upon a time back in the days when they had. Players like Bobby Reid knocking about and Marlon Pack in midfield when he was actually good. And, you'd expect someone of Lee Johnson's calibre who has got plenty of experience in the Championship, which is a very competitive league, to then go up to the Cinch Premiership and perhaps make Hibs, I wouldn't say, put them in the same category as Celtic and Rangers, but to really sort of push whoever is second, most likely Rangers, but to sort of push that boundary in a way.
I think the Glasgow clubs are too big.
This is the thing, yeah.
I can't ever see, unless there was a horror season for either of the Glasgow clubs, anyone breaking that monopoly. But I think for Hibs and Hearts and Aberdeen fans, what they all expect from their club is to be third, consistently third, and then that gives you the chance of getting a good draw like Aberdeen have got, and having a crack at the Europa League. It at least secures you Conference League football. Hibs
No,
are obviously
exactly. Yeah.
in the middle of trying to qualify for that, but it at least secures you that. So I think he will be under a bit of pressure because again he missed out on that on third, and again was squabbling with Hearts has lost Nesbitt. They have signed a striker, but yeah, it'll be an interesting time. But I think there was already a few rumblings from Hibs fans. Then he put together a run, and like I said, they finished okay last season, but they work on a shoestring, and they've been kind of propped up in recent years by having like John McGinn and Kevin Nesbitt, like really really top players.
Yeah, and it's never easy for a club like Hibs to replace like a player like Kevin Nisbet. Ryan Porteous, another one.
Yeah,
Going to Watford, like they it feels like it's always once every couple of seasons that they'll have someone that they'll get
especially
either
the
through the
money
rank. Yeah,
they get from that.
exactly.
You
Yeah,
got 3 million for John McGinn. You know what I mean? £3 million they got for John McGinn. Absolutely criminal that these players are allowed to leave. But Hibs need that. Like, Hibs can't hold out anymore. And at the time, Villa knew we punched 3 million. You can't say no to it, which is the dynamic of the league that we're in. But yeah, they've signed a few players. We'll see how it falls down, but not the best start to the campaign for them. Definitely.
no, absolutely not. And I feel like, do you feel like Livingston as well have kind of what's the term for it? Trying to think what the term would be for Livingston. Like their time in the Cinch Premiership taken its toll. Do we feel like they're kind of like the equivalent of Leeds in the Premier League? That they're bound to go down.
Yeah, I think Livingston are just one of those clubs, along with the likes of Ross County, that no matter what happens, they're going to be kind of fluctuating between you know that relegation playoff or dropping out of the league. So um, I'm sure they'll see the point against Aberdeen as a good building block, and they'll take it and move on. But they've been very vocal about their struggles to be able to attract people to the football club, and it doesn't help when you see the likes of maybe Kilmarnock, a team that you fancy to be in and around you, beating Rangers on day one, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, we're already playing catch up, which is a long way to go, and then I'm sure that it's not, I'm sure that's not the dynamic, but already mentally you're thinking, it's 3 points that they're above us. So I think they'll struggle, and I think Martindale's been very vocal in the fact that they just haven't been able to attract the kind of player that they would want to be able to go out and compete, even with the likes of St Mirren, that's done some fantastic business and had a magnificent season last year and have started in the same vein this year.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Do we see Aberdeen as well? Like, do we see Aberdeen being back up there again? Like
So,
pushing for third, and again like going on a European adventure. Like you said, they got a good draw, leaving them in with a
so
good chance to go into the groups.
I mean, looking at I've just flicked their team on there. They've still got Duke, they've still got Majewski. So there's goals in there. The Graham Shinney, obviously, that they brought in.
Yeah,
Um,
linked.
they've
Yeah,
Jamie
he
Clark,
was linked to a move somewhere as well. Graham Shinney again.
they've Jamie Clarkson in the middle, who was very good for them. I think they would probably have liked to do a little bit more business. And maybe if they were to get through the qualifiers, then that business could kind of sort of unravel, and they could get things done. But I think their aim again will be third. That's where they finished last year, and Barry Robson had them playing some really good stuff. Obviously beat Rangers at Pittodrie, which was massive for them. So last season. So I think that'll be the bar, and they'll be looking to achieve those same heights again. But you'd expect those three to be in and amongst it. Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen fighting for that first spot that gets them into I think it's the Europa League playoffs. I think they end up in. So even if they don't win that, they're guaranteed conference League group stage football, which is a good thing for Scottish football as
Again,
well.
yeah, it is, and especially like if this is the thing. Like I was just trying to sort of be in the head of like what would it like to be like an Aberdeen fan or a Hibs fan or a Hearts fan, where it feels like it's like an acceptance every season that Celtic and Rangers will be first and second, but then it's obviously you have your derby games, so you have Hibs Hearts, and then Aberdeen and I can't even think of their rivals. Who would they be rivals with?
Probably Rangers would be their big
Probably
one.
Rangers. But alright, we'll take Hibs for example as well. Like getting bragging rights over Hearts, and then hoping for a couple of trips away in Europe.
Yeah,
But
and
then
probably
that is it, and then maybe a Scottish League Cup perhaps.
getting to Hampden. Yeah, it's a strange dynamic, but the emphasis is on them to go and recruit and close the gap. It's difficult for them. I'm not saying it's easy, and Hibs and Aberdeen fans and Hearts fans probably kick off at me because of the wealth gap that we have, and it's fair enough. But it's under them to go and recruit, but it's also under them that when they get John McGinns or when they get Ramsey's like at the right back for Aberdeen, and when they get these players coming through, the likes of Aaron Hickey at Hearts, that they don't just let them leave for buttons. When you've got a real player that you can see has talent and is going to go and perform at a higher level, you're getting a decent fee. And
that is it. And sell-on fees are a massive thing in football nowadays, and clubs really do depend on those sorts of payments.
But if we just to finish off, then we're transitioning onto the Championship. A few minutes left. Millwall beating Borough at the stadium that Middlesbrough play at. For some reason, I can't think of it. Riverside.
Yeah.
Massive result for the Flat Caps and jelly-eared bastards.
The Stone Islanders, yes, of course. Brilliant start to the season for Millwall, and I don't think Borough can beat themselves up too much. Like I know they were playing at the Riverside and they were very strong last season, but I still heavily back Michael Carrick to be a success at Borough and to be up there in that top six at the very least. And Millwall as well. They're a great side. Again, they've managed to recruit well, retain well, and they're a real force to go against. In terms of physicality, and then obviously the Den.
They have a Luton field, don't they? But I think
they really do.
They have a better calibre of player, even though Luton have been promoted and whatever, blah blah blah. But a better calibre of player actually on their books on paper. But they have that real. I know that they're famous for, like you said, Stone Island's 14-year-olds throwing coins at the away end and all that crap. But yeah, the Den has this air about it that the new Den has taken on, a real hostile atmosphere when they get the place going. And yeah, they're always in and around. I, for one, would love to see them stay in the Championship because the fan base is ugly, but never mind.
Well, like Cam said, surely the Premier League got to look at Millwall if they got maybe you're a bit too racist for the Premier League. But I don't know. I feel their time is slowly coming where we will see them in the Premier League one day, and rightfully so. Like they just managed to inherit a certain breed of players where they just get the Millwall model.
Yeah, they put their Brexit head on them on straightforward, do brick walls for whatever man's in charge.
That's it,
big for Norwich. Adam Eder, 96th minute, gets them off to winning way.
Again, sparing blushes a little bit there as well.
Liam Delap on loan at Hull. A big risk for him to go to such a bang average football club. I'm noticing that we are really going to alienate ourselves in season 3 to a lot of football clubs, but Hull recently, well, maybe not recently, but has previously been voted the worst place in the UK to live. Apparently one of the worst places to play football as well, because you're getting beat by Norwich in the 96th minute.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about Liam Delap, right? I mean, he was on loan at Stoke last season.
Beat waterlogged pitch 4-1 though. Stoke.
They did. So
there was no water stored on this pitch today.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the Tigers weren't able to maul at the end of the game, but
Yeah.
Don't know about that away end, that's for sure. Conceding the 96th minute to Adam Ider as well. Why does it feel like he's been like a 22-year-old for the last 5 years at Norwich?
He's always been that 3-star FM player, isn't he?
He really has.
Absolute beautiful bench warmer that plays 6 games a season for you, and they're all in the EFL Cup. But fair play to him. He's got on. He's bagged.
Bless him.
We'll finish off with a few more, and then we're obviously done. Massive shout out to Green Army.
Plymouth Argyle.
Back in the Championship. Playing Huddersfield, return of that derby as well. Leeds Huddersfield's always a good one, so that'll be fun to watch. But they were absolutely put to the sword. 3-1, Plymouth beat them. Great result for them.
Well, that's why, because they signed Ditmore Van Nostril boy. No, great start for Plymouth. Again, I was just going to move on to Ipswich there as well, who got off to an absolute storming start to go to the Stadium of Light. And Sunderland, who, again, were a team up there, competing for playoff places last season, spent pretty well. They're quite a very well financially backed club nowadays in the Championship. Bringing in the BTEC Jude Bellingham, his brother, who ended up missing an absolute humdinger in that game. But
did Birmingham retire his number as well?
I wouldn't be surprised if I'm honest. If they had, then don't know what to say to that. But no, great, brilliant starts in the first week for Plymouth and Ipswich as well. Nice to see Nathan Broadhead, the Welsh international, getting on the score sheet as well for the Tractor Boys as well. Up Nathan Broadhead, and brilliant start for Ipswich.
And I mean, it's lucky that Adam Ider does get on the end of that, or it'd have been a difficult time to be a Norwich fan if Ipswich had gone away to the Stadium of Light on their return to the Championship, bagged a great away win, and you'd have drawn at home to Hull City. It may have been difficult cutting about Norfolk, but they got the job done. Well done. Yeah. And then an absolute blast from the past, a name that was mentioned in pretty much every transfer special 2 years ago, Surike Dembele bags for Birmingham as they draw away from home at the Liberty.
Yeah, fuck them, mate. Struggling to draw against Birmingham. Pathetic.
It's beautiful. Mate. Absolutely beautiful. Fuck all really else to.
Let me guess who scored. Oh no, it was Jerry Yates that scored for Swansea.
They got absolutely sickening that Reading cost me £180 because they couldn't beat Peterborough. I'm disgusted, absolutely fucking disgusted. What's happened to them? How do you get relegated and get beat on your opening day?
Because they're wank, mate. That's why.
Absolute filth. I guess a little segue is that it may not be a long stay, but it's going to be an entertaining one. Wrexham battered 5-3 at home.
Yeah.
With Dons. I mean.
No, this is going to be like. I mean, it's not quite a segue or a change of topic, but I was at. So we had after works on Friday last week, and my principal was we're sitting at the tables having drinks, and he gets up and he's taking photos of the staff, the whole table and stuff like that, and he's a United fan. And as he's looking at taking the photo, I look up and notice that he's got a Wrexham phone case. And so I make a weird face at him, and then he looks at me puzzled because I didn't keep my photo, didn't keep myself composed for the photo. Well, I've just gone, and I've turned to my colleague who's a West Brom fan. I've just gone, why has he got a fucking Wrexham fucking phone case? And then he came over and was...
At this point, mate, the point that I would really love to make is that you're living in Stockholm or just outside it, and at that table you've a Cardiff City fan, you've a United fan that's cutting about the Wrexham football case, and then you've turned to a West Brom fan. What the fuck is happening in Sweden?
It sounds like a joke gone wrong. I know. It's unbelievable. You wouldn't honestly. I could go back... over the years of how many different football fans we've had at my workplace. I'm talking Sheffield Wednesday we've had there, we've had Nottingham Forest there. Mental, mate.
But you expect the Uniteds and Arsenals because they transcend the world because of the way that the English Premier League is. But West Brom, brilliant. Fantastic.
Unbelievable. And he's not even the first one I've met in Stockholm either. Unbelievable. It's mental. But yeah, like, as we were saying, Wrexham. Yeah, it's gonna be. It could well be either the case that they've had a slow start to picking up to the pace in League Two, or they're in for a very long season. But I heavily
Signed James McLean. Send that.
34-year-old James McLean. So
Yeah,
this is
it
the thing.
talks
And
every transfer window about wanting to sign for Celtic. I mean, no, look, just come and sit in the stands, mate, and sing along. You're never pulling on the jersey. I'm sorry. And no matter about how good the song would be, but it's done now.
well,
But yeah, mate,
we're definitely well. I mean, before we finish, it feels like I'm hoping that this season that we hear a lot more from Bootlegger. I just want to hear every single vlog him going, well, I just staggered up the stairs after half-time cider, we're fucking losing again.
it's it was that worrying. Did you see that picture that went up on Twitter? The bootlegger who was laying on the floor,
Oh yeah.
covered in pish. Like, it looks like a man that needs to go to a meeting, a nice anonymous one, and stand up and tell him all about his problems.
Oh, I could see him one day being on a documentary on Channel 4, you know.
Netflix would endorse it 100%.
Oh, Netflix will. They love their documentaries now. I mean, not to the extent of, some of the other ones that we've seen, but we won't plug too many serial killers on here.
He could be a serial killer, who knows? And Netflix should definitely pick it up.
Oh, God.
But look, mate, great to be back.
Great to be back, mate. No, it's awesome.
Yeah, mate, loved it.
Mate, we're back. We're firing. We're booming. Great to have you back again, Mayhem. And looking forward to next week already, when we'll have some Premier League action to discuss about, and hopefully we can have Cam on here if he's not out, getting up to his normal shenanigans.
Plug a Deadpool on how many goals Luton are going to concede.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I mean,
I've got for at least 4, and my Bet365 account will back that up.
Well, I'm just hoping no one's put 50p in Cam next week, and
definitely will be that boy.
It definitely will be
constantly.
Oh, he's got slots all over him, hasn't he? But no, honestly, absolutely brilliant to be back. And thank you again for joining me, ladies and gents. Thank you all for tuning in. This is our 3rd season now, so if you only just discovered the Football Booth, you could check us out all on good audio platforms. You can check the live recordings on YouTube at the Football Booth channel. Whilst you're over there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment on those videos as well. And until next week, ladies and gents, I bid you all good night and Nostar.